The universe operates not as a sanctuary for the living, but as a vast, unblinking engine of precision and ironclad logic. Its architecture is composed of cold, immutable laws that dictate the motion of every atom and the curvature of every void. There is no warmth in the vacuum, only the relentless friction of physical constants grinding against the fabric of reality. For 13.8 billion years, this machine has functioned with a clinical efficiency that defies the need for a designer or a purpose. It is a system of gears and levers forged from the fundamental forces, gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and weak nuclear interactions. These are the settings of the machine, calibrated to a degree of accuracy that allows for the temporary assembly of matter into stars, planets, and the fragile, fleeting structures of biological life. Yet, life is a mere unintended byproduct, a localized fluctuation in a system designed for a far more mechanical and indifferent end. The galaxies are not homes, they are cogs. They spin in a synchronized and silent dance, governed by the mathematical mandates of general relativity. Each star functions as a furnace, consuming its hydrogen fuel with the mechanical regularity of a piston, converting mass into energy according to a ratio that never wavers. The light emitted by these stellar engines travels across the dark at exactly 299,792,458 meters per second. This speed is not a suggestion but a hard limit, a physical barrier that defines the boundaries of the machine's reach. Within this framework, every event is a calculation, every collision a result of a formula, and every death of a sun a predictable exhaustion of resources. The universe does not feel, it functions. It does not judge, it executes. Space-time itself acts as the massive, invisible chassis of this engine. It is a four-dimensional manifold that stretches and curves under the weight of mass, providing the stage upon which the mechanical drama of the cosmos unfolds. But beneath this structural integrity lies a silent mathematical betrayal. We perceive the universe as a stable stage, a fixed arena where history can be written, but it is actually a conveyor belt in constant accelerating motion. Since the very first moment of the initial expansion, the machine has been producing more space. Initially, this was the expansion of a system finding its equilibrium, a cooling process that allowed the first particles to coalesce. But a fundamental flaw, or perhaps the ultimate hidden function of the architecture, is now coming to light. At the heart of the vacuum, within the very gaps between the gears, there exists a repulsive pressure. It is a numerical constant integrated into the equations that describe the behavior of the void. For eons, this force was a mere whisper, a negligible hum overshadowed by the heavy attractive pull of dark matter and the visible stars. But the machine is designed to grow. As the distance between the components increases, the volume of the vacuum expands, and with it, the cumulative influence of this dark energy. It is a positive feedback loop, a mechanical runaway that is now shifting the entire cosmos into a higher gear. The conveyor belt is no longer just moving. It is accelerating, and the speed of this motion is beginning to tear at the connections of the machine itself. This is the cold truth of the engine. It does not possess a heart, nor does it care for the histories written upon the planets it carries through the dark. It is a centrifugal force of a scale that dwarfs the human capacity for comprehension, systematically dismantling the connections between the various parts of reality. Galaxies that were once neighbours, bound by the invisible threads of gravity, are being pulled apart by the expansion of the floor beneath them. The machinery of space-time is effectively deleting the map of the cosmos, one sector at a time. The distant light that reaches our eyes today is a fading record of a reality that the machine is already in the process of discarding. We see stars that, in the objective present of the cosmic clock, have already been carried beyond our reach by the relentless acceleration of the belt. We stand as the accidental witnesses to this clinical dissolution. We are the unintended observers of a system that is programmed to isolate its components until every galaxy becomes a solitary island in an infinite dark ocean. The logic is flawless. The precision is terrifying. The engine of the universe does not count down toward a grand finale or a meaningful resolution. It counts down toward a state of maximum entropy, where the gears finally stop because there is nothing left for them to turn. The stars will exhaust their fuel, the black holes will evaporate into a thin mist of radiation, and the expansion will continue until the distance between 2 points of matter becomes infinite. This is the cold machine, and we are currently living through the final era where its inner workings are still visible. We occupy a narrow window of time, a brief tick of the universal clock, where the light of 100 billion galaxies still reaches our telescopes. We are the only part of the engine that has developed the ability to look back at the gears and wonder why they are turning. In the face of an indifferent cosmos, our presence is a glitch, a moment of awareness in a system of mindless iron and math. The machine will continue its work, unmaking the heavens and stretching the light into nothingness, long after the last observer has been crushed by the weight of time. The conveyor belt is moving, the gears are turning, and the isolation of our world has already begun. The year 1929 arrived with a quiet, icy clarity atop the summit of Mount Wilson. There, perched above the sprawling lights of Los Angeles, the 100-inch Hooker telescope stood as the most powerful optical instrument ever forged by human hands. It was a massive mechanical eye, a construct of steel and glass designed to peer into the deep architecture of the night. For centuries, the prevailing consensus of the scientific establishment held that the universe was a static, eternal room, a fixed container of infinite age and unchanging dimensions. This was the steady-state reality, a comfort to the mind that sought a permanent home in the stars. But the data accumulating in the cold California nights was about to dismantle this illusion, revealing the first visible evidence that the machine was not standing still. The technician at the heart of this revelation was Edwin Hubble. Night after night, he directed the massive telescope toward distant, faint smudges of light known then as nebulae. These were not mere clouds of gas within our own neighbourhood, but entire island universes, vast collections of stars situated at distances that defied previous measurement. To understand their motion, Hubble utilised a spectrograph, a device that deconstructs the incoming light of a star into a barcode of colours. In a stationary universe, these spectral lines would remain fixed in their expected positions. However, as Hubble examined the light from these distant galaxies, he observed a systematic and undeniable displacement. The barcodes were shifting. Every galaxy he measured, with the exception of a few close neighbours, showed a shift toward the longer, redder wavelengths of the electromagnetic spectrum. This phenomenon, known as redshift, served as the first audible hum of the cosmic engine's gears. The light was being stretched. If a galaxy were moving away from us through a static space, its light would shift red, much like the pitch of a receding siren drops. But the data suggested something far more profound than simple motion. Hubble discovered a linear relationship. The further away a galaxy was, the faster it appeared to be receding. This was not a chaotic flight of individual objects. It was a uniform expansion. The very floor of the universe was growing. The realization shattered the concept of the cosmos as a static room. Instead, the universe revealed itself to be more akin to the surface of an inflating balloon. If one were to draw dots upon the rubber of such a balloon, the dots themselves would not be moving across the surface. Rather, the surface between them would be stretching, pushing every dot away from every other dot. In this mechanical reality, the primary product of the universe is space itself. The machine is a relentless factory of distance, churning out new cubic kilometers of vacuum every second, everywhere, all at once. This was the first hint that the cold machine was in a state of perpetual work, a system whose fundamental function was to increase the volume of its own territory. This discovery of the expansion changed the nature of time and distance. It meant that the universe had a history, a beginning, and a trajectory. If the gears were turning forward to expand the cosmos, then turning them backward would lead to a moment of total convergence, a point of infinite density and heat. But more importantly for the inhabitants of the machine, it meant that the architecture of space-time was dynamic. The light travelling from a distant galaxy toward the 100-inch telescope was fighting against the very expansion of the medium through which it moved. As the light made its way across the void, the space beneath it stretched, lengthening the wave and draining its energy. This redshift was the physical signature of the machine's operation. a tax levied on every photon by the expanding vacuum. The implications for the future were, at that time, still shrouded in the limitations of early 20th century mathematics. Most assumed that the expansion was a remnant of the initial explosion, a momentum that would eventually be slowed and perhaps reversed by the collective gravitational pull of all the matter in existence. It was believed that the machine had a braking system, that the heavy gears of gravity would one day grind the expansion to a halt, perhaps even pulling the galaxies back together in a grand final collapse. This view maintained a sense of cosmic symmetry, a hope that the machine was cyclical and self-contained. But the observations at Mount Wilson had uncovered a truth that could not be retracted. The universe was not a house, it was a process. The static stars of the ancient poets were revealed to be components on a moving assembly line, drifting further apart with every passing hour. The scale of this movement was immense. Even then, the calculations suggested that galaxies were moving at speeds of thousands of kilometers per second. The sheer kinetic energy of the cosmos was staggering, a testament to the power of the initial impulse that had set the engine in motion 13.8 billion years ago. As the decade closed, the scientific world grappled with this new, restless reality. The machine was no longer a silent monument, it was a roaring, active engine. The production of space was its primary occupation, an endless expansion that pushed the horizon of the observable world further away with every tick of the clock. Yet, even as Hubble and his contemporaries mapped this growth, they could not have known that the expansion was not merely a steady coasting. They had discovered that the machine was moving, but they had not yet realized that it was stepping on the accelerator. The true nature of the dark energy that fueled this runaway motion remained hidden in the shadows of the vacuum, waiting for the technology of the next century to reveal the full, terrifying extent of the machine's intent. The narrative of the machine remained relatively stable for nearly 7 decades, predicated on the assumption that the heavy hand of gravity would eventually act as a brake on the expansion initiated at the dawn of time. By the year 1998, however, the technology of observation had advanced from the photographic plates of Hubble's era to the hypersensitive digital sensors of the late 20th century. 2 international cohorts of physicists and astronomers, the Supernova Cosmology Project led by Saul Perlmutter, and the High-Z Supernova Search Team, led by Brian Schmidt and Adam Rees, embarked on a mission to measure the precise rate of this deceleration. They sought to determine the final fate of the engine, whether it would coast to a gradual halt or eventually reverse its motion in a grand contraction. To do this, they required a more precise measuring tool than the distant, blurry galaxies of the past. They found it in the violent, predictable deaths of stars known as Type 1a supernovae. A Type 1a supernova is a mechanical event of staggering consistency. It occurs in a binary star system when a white dwarf, the dense carbon-oxygen core of a dead star, siphons matter from a companion until it reaches a critical mass. At exactly 1.4 times the mass of our Sun, the white dwarf can no longer support its own weight. It undergoes a runaway thermonuclear explosion that briefly outshines an entire galaxy of 100 billion stars. Because these explosions always occur at the same mass threshold, they always release the same amount of energy. They are the universal standard candles, cosmic mile markers of known brightness. By comparing how bright these explosions appeared to be with how much their light had been redshifted, the teams could map the history of the machine's expansion across billions of years of cosmic time. The expectation was a mathematical certainty. Gravity, the attractive force of all the matter in the universe, must be pulling back on the expansion. The supernovae at great distances should have appeared slightly brighter and closer than a constant expansion would suggest, indicating that the universe had been moving faster in the past and was now slowing down. But as the data from the telescopes in Chile and Hawaii began to synchronize, a profound system error emerged. The distant supernovae were not brighter than expected. They were significantly dimmer. They were much further away than the standard models of gravity allowed. The machine was not slowing down. It was accelerating. This revelation hit the scientific community with the force of a physical blow. It was as if a driver had pressed the brake pedal only to feel the vehicle surge forward with terrifying power. The gears of the cosmos were not grinding toward a halt. They were shifting into a higher, more violent gear. The culprit behind this unexpected surge was identified as dark energy, a repulsive force inherent to the very fabric of the vacuum. This was the cosmological constant that Albert Einstein had once discarded as his greatest blunder, now resurrected as the dominant driver of the machine's future. The vacuum of space was not empty. It possessed an intrinsic energy density, a pressure that pushed outward against the inward pull of gravity. The history of the machine was rewritten in an instant. For the first several billion years following the initial expansion, matter was sufficiently dense that gravity held the upper hand, slowing the growth of space and allowing galaxies and large-scale structures to form. But as the machine produced more space, the density of matter diluted while the density of dark energy remained constant. Roughly 6 billion years ago, the universe crossed a critical threshold. The repulsive force of the vacuum finally surpassed the attractive pull of matter. At that moment, the expansion of the universe transitioned from a coasting deceleration to a runaway acceleration. The system error was not in the data, but in the human understanding of the machine's architecture. This shift marked the beginning of the Great Isolation. Dark energy acts as a centrifugal force on a cosmological scale, a hidden motor that thrives on the very space it creates. The more space the machine produces, the more dark energy there is to push the galaxies apart, which in turn creates more space. It is a self-sustaining cycle of expansion that shows no sign of exhaustion. The clinical efficiency of the machine was now revealed to be even more ruthless than previously imagined. It was no longer a system seeking equilibrium, but a runaway engine destined to tear the tapestry of reality asunder. The researchers who uncovered this truth, Perlmutter, Schmidt and Rees, were eventually awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics, but the prize was a small consolation for the reality they had unveiled. They had proven that the universe is governed by a force that actively works to dismantle it. The cold machine is programmed to expand until the light from distant stars can no longer bridge the widening gaps between galaxies. The discovery of 1998 revealed that we are living in a universe that has already lost control of its own growth. The brakes have failed, the accelerator is flawed, and the galaxies are being swept toward a horizon from which no information and no light can ever return. The cosmic engine is running hot, fueled by the vacuum itself, and its ultimate purpose is the total and absolute fragmentation of everything that exists. At a distance of approximately 18 billion light-years from our current position, the machine manifests its most absolute and terrifying boundary. This is the cosmic event horizon. It is not a solid barrier, nor a shimmering curtain of energy that one could touch or see. It is a mathematical threshold, a line in the sand of space-time where the fundamental rules of the engine reach a breaking point. Beyond this limit, the relentless production of space achieves a velocity that exceeds the speed of light itself. This boundary is the ultimate manifestation of the machine's cold logic, a point where the geometry of the universe dictates a permanent and irreversible separation between two regions of reality. To understand the mechanics of this threshold, one must reconcile the absolute speed limit of the universe with the limitless expansion of the vacuum. The speed of light is the supreme governor of the machine, fixed at roughly 300,000 kilometers per second. It is the maximum velocity at which any signal, any particle, or any piece of information can traverse the vacuum. This is the speed at which the gears of causality turn. However, this limit applies only to objects moving through space. It does not apply to the expansion of space itself. The conveyor belt of the universe has no such speed limit. As the distance between 2 points increases, the cumulative amount of new space being generated between them also increases. At the critical threshold of 18 billion light-years, the expansion of the intervening void adds up to a recession speed that surpasses 300,000 kilometers per second. This creates a paradox that defines the limit of our existence. A photon of light emitted from a galaxy at this distance is like a swimmer attempting to reach a distant shore, while the water itself flows in the opposite direction. The swimmer moves at their maximum possible speed, the speed of light, but if the river is widening faster than they can stroke, they will never make progress. They are effectively moving backward relative to their destination. This is the mechanical reality of the cosmic horizon. Light is moving toward us at the greatest speed allowed by physics, yet it is being carried away from us even faster by the swelling of the universe. The gap between that light and our telescopes is growing, not shrinking. The light is trapped on a treadmill that has been set to a speed it can never match. The result is a systematic and permanent deletion of the universe's history. Every second, as the machine continues its accelerating expansion, more galaxies are swept across this invisible line. As they cross, they exit our causal future forever. The light they emit after crossing will travel for an eternity through an ever-expanding void, never reaching the Milky Way, never being recorded by any lens, and never influencing our reality again. They do not merely move away, they vanish from the ledger of our existence. The machine is effectively redacting its own contents, tearing pages out of the book of the cosmos and burning them in the fire of the accelerating expansion. This is not a matter of distance alone, but of the fundamental severance of cause and effect. This causal disconnection is a divorce of reality. The universe beyond 18 billion light-years becomes a ghost realm, a place that may physically exist in some abstract sense, but is forever unreachable and unknowable. For any future inhabitant of our galaxy, the observable universe is shrinking. While the physical machine grows larger and larger, the visible machine becomes smaller and more confined. We are witnessing a cosmic foreclosure. The engine is shutting down the long-distance communication lines, isolating our local neighbourhood from the grander structure of the cosmic web. This is not a temporary state, it is a permanent severance. Once a galaxy crosses the horizon, no amount of time, no technological advancement, and no theoretical breakthrough can ever bring it back into our view. The horizon is clinical in its precision. It does not care about the civilizations that might reside in those departing galaxies, nor the vast amounts of information, complexity, and life they may contain. To the machine, they are simply coordinates that have moved beyond the range of interaction. The event horizon is the ultimate proof of the universe's indifference. It is a one-way valve in the architecture of space-time, allowing matter and light to exit our reality, while ensuring that nothing can ever return. The boundary is an invisible guillotine, falling silently across the reaches of space, severing the threads of light that bind the cosmos together. As we look out into the night, we are staring at a fading map. The galaxies we see near the edge of our vision are already gone. Their current state, their current stars, and their current histories are already on the other side of the 18 billion light-year line. We are seeing their past, a lingering afterimage that the machine has not yet finished deleting. We are left on a shrinking island of light, surrounded by an expanding ocean of darkness that moves faster than light itself. This 18 billion light-year mark is the boundary of our kingdom, and that kingdom is being invaded by the void. Every tick of the clock represents another star system, another cluster, and another history being silenced by the mathematical mandates of the cold machine. The deletion is total, silent, and irreversible, leaving us to contemplate a future where the only thing left of the universe is the small, lonely collection of stars we call our own. The blueprint of this mechanical dissolution is encoded within the lambda-cold dark matter model, the governing equation that dictates the behaviour of the cosmic engine. In this framework, the Greek letter lambda represents the cosmological constant, a term that describes a fundamental property of the vacuum itself. To the human senses, the void between galaxies appears to be a total and absolute nothingness, a hollow stage where matter performs its various dramas. However, the machine reveals a different truth. The vacuum is not empty. It is a reservoir of latent, repulsive energy that possesses a physical density, a pressure that pushes outward against the very fabric of space-time. This energy is the fuel of the cold machine, and unlike any other substance in the universe, it is inexhaustible. The density of this vacuum energy is staggering in its subtlety. It is measured at approximately 10 to the power of minus 27 kilograms per cubic meter. On the scale of a laboratory, or even a solar system, this value is so infinitesimal that it is practically non-existent. Within the confines of a single room, the total amount of dark energy is not even enough to move a speck of dust. Within the boundaries of our planetary neighbourhood, the heavy gears of gravity and electromagnetism dominate the local machinery, keeping the planets in their orbits and the stars in their clusters. But the machine operates on a scale where the infinitesimal becomes the absolute. When this tiny value is multiplied by the incomprehensible volume of the intergalactic voids, the cumulative pressure becomes the most powerful force in existence. This is the mechanical genius of the engine's design. Matter composed of atoms and dark matter is finite. As the universe expands, the particles of matter are spread thinner and thinner across an ever-increasing volume. Their density drops, and their collective gravitational pull weakens. Gravity is a force that relies on proximity. It is the tension of the gears trying to hold the machine together. But the energy of the vacuum does not dilute. Because it is a property of space itself, its density remains constant at 10 to the power of minus 27 kilograms per cubic meter, regardless of how much the universe grows. Every new cubic meter of space that the machine produces comes pre-installed with its own fixed amount of dark energy. This creates a terrifying feedback loop. As the machine expands, it creates more vacuum. As it creates more vacuum, there is more dark energy. As there is more dark energy, the repulsive pressure increases, which in turn causes the machine to expand even faster. This is the perpetual motion of cosmic destruction. The machine is not consuming an external fuel source that will eventually run dry. It is generating its own propellant through the very act of its operation. It is a system that thrives on its own growth, a runaway process that ensures the eventual fragmentation of the cosmic web. The more the universe grows, the more power it has to grow even further, shifting the gears of expansion into a state of permanent, exponential acceleration. The vacuum, therefore, acts as a pressurized medium. It is as if the universe is an inflating lung that never exhales, or a spring that is being wound tighter with every passing second. This repulsive pressure works in direct opposition to the pull of gravity. For the first several billion years of the machine's history, the density of matter was high enough to keep the expansion in check. The gears of gravity held the galaxies together in great clusters and filaments, forming the large-scale structure of the cosmos. But as the volume of the universe increased, the balance of power shifted. Roughly 6 billion years ago, the total amount of dark energy in the growing vacuum finally outweighed the total gravitational pull of all the matter in the universe. At that precise moment, the cold machine began to win. The result is the slow and methodical dismantling of the cosmic architecture. The intergalactic voids, once mere gaps between the meaningful parts of the universe, have become the dominant components of the machine. These voids are now exhaling, pushing the galactic clusters away from one another with increasing violence. The vast filaments of gas and dark matter that once served as the highways of the universe are being stretched to the breaking point. The machine is effectively cutting the structural supports of the cosmos, ensuring that every large-scale bond is eventually severed. This is the clinical reality of the Lambda CDM model, a universe that is being pushed apart by its own emptiness. The cosmological constant is the final signature of the machine's indifference. It is a number that does not change, a rule that does not bend, and a force that does not tire. It ensures that the future of the universe is one of total and absolute isolation. As the fuel of the vacuum continues to drive the expansion, the distance between galaxies will grow until the very concept of a neighbour becomes a relic of a forgotten past. The machine is programmed to run until the density of matter is effectively zero, leaving behind nothing but the constant, unchanging pressure of the vacuum. The 10 to the power of minus 27 kilograms per cubic meter of energy will remain, a ghostly residue in a universe where the stars have all gone out and the light has been stretched into an infinite silence. The engine does not stop when the work is done. It continues to churn out empty space, forever expanding a void that has nothing left to contain. The light emitted from a galaxy near the cosmic event horizon begins its journey as a vibrant pulse of energy, carrying the signature of newborn stars, the chemical fingerprints of oxygen and carbon, and the history of 1 billion solar systems. But as this light enters the intergalactic void, it encounters the primary function of the cold machine, the relentless production of new space. For every meter the photon travels, the universe manufactures more distance in front of it and behind it. The light is not merely travelling through a static medium, it is traversing a stretching fabric. This process, known as cosmological redshift, begins the slow, mechanical strangulation of the signal. The waves of light are physically pulled apart by the expansion of the floor beneath them, a process that drains the very essence of the information they carry. A wave that began with a short, high-energy frequency, appearing blue or violet to a hypothetical observer at the source, is drawn out into longer, lazier oscillations. The colour shifts through the spectrum, bleeding from violet to green, then to yellow, and finally into a deep bruised red. This is the first stage of the redaction. But the machine does not stop at the limits of human vision. As the galaxy approaches the 18 billion light-year threshold, the light is stretched beyond the visible entirely. It descends into the infrared, becoming a heat signature that can only be detected by specialized sensors. Then, it is pulled further still, into the realm of microwaves and long-wave radio signals. The frequency drops until the gaps between the peaks of the waves are measured in kilometers rather than nanometers. This is a process of energetic attrition. In the physics of the machine, the energy of a photon is inextricably linked to its frequency. By stretching the wavelength, the expansion of the universe is effectively siphoning energy away from the light. The photons do not lose their speed. They still move at exactly 299,792,458 meters per second, but they lose their strength. Their ability to interact with matter to trigger a chemical reaction in a retina or a charge in a digital sensor drops towards zero. The machine is a parasite of information, draining the vitality of the light until it becomes a ghostly, energetic whisper that carries no weight and makes no sound. It is the ultimate censorship, a physical law that ensures the further a signal travels, the less it has to say. The result of this mechanical stretching is the creation of the redshift ghost. When we look through our most powerful telescopes at the furthest reaches of the observable universe, we are not seeing galaxies as they exist in the present moment of the cosmic clock. We are seeing the light they emitted billions of years ago. For those galaxies situated near the 18 billion light-year mark, a terrifying reality emerges. The objects we see are already gone. In the physical present of the universe, these galaxies have already been swept across the event horizon by the accelerating expansion. They have exited our causal reality. They are no longer reachable, even if we were to launch a probe at the speed of light this very instant. We are staring at the afterimages of the departed. Because of the way the machine distorts time and space near the horizon, the light from these galaxies appears to slow down and redden into infinity. We see them as they were just before they crossed the point of no return, frozen in a state of perpetual exit. They become dimmer and redder, their clocks appearing to tick slower and slower from our perspective, until they fade into the absolute blackness of the radio background. It is a fading photograph of a reality that has already been redacted. The machine is systematically erasing the map of the cosmos, leaving us with a collection of ghosts that haunt the edges of our vision. These apparitions serve as a reminder that the universe we observe is a lie, a lingering residue of a connected past that the present has already discarded. This redaction is the ultimate proof of the machine's clinical indifference. It does not delete a galaxy with a sudden flash or a violent eruption. It simply stretches the connection until it snaps, turning a vibrant hub of stars into a silent, unreachable memory. The information is not just lost, it is rendered irrelevant. Even if the stars in that distant galaxy are still burning, even if civilizations there are still thriving, they are effectively dead to us. The light that would carry news of their existence is trapped on the wrong side of the expanding void, destined to wander an ever-growing darkness for eternity. We are left on a shrinking island of clarity, surrounded by the fading echoes of a universe that the machine has already decided to discard. The redshift ghost is the final warning of the engine. The past is visible, but the future is being systematically dismantled, one wavelength at a time. The map is being wiped clean, and soon, the only stars remaining on our charts will be the ones within our immediate local reach. The cosmic floor operates as a vast tiered treadmill, a system of moving plates that define the limits of all possible travel within the machine. This is the mechanical reality of the expanding manifold. In this model, every point in space is the center of its own receding belt, and every photon of light is a tireless runner, a sprinter bound by the absolute speed limit of 300,000 kilometers per second. The runner possesses no agency and no capacity to rest. It is a creature of pure velocity, propelled by the fundamental constants of the engine. Yet, the race it runs is rigged by the very geometry of the track. The velocity of this cosmic belt is not uniform. It scales with distance, a linear increase that ensures the further the runner travels, the faster the floor beneath it moves in the opposite direction. Near the centre of the machine, the motion of the treadmill is subtle. Within the local neighbourhood of a few million light-years, the belt hums with a manageable recession, a speed that the runner can easily overcome. The light from a nearby star reaches its destination with ease, having crossed a floor that was moving backward at only a tiny fraction of its own forward speed. In these inner circles, the connections of gravity and light are secure. The runner is faster than the motor of the vacuum, but as the runner looks toward the distant horizons, the mechanical nature of the trap becomes clear. The further a galaxy sits from the observer, the more space exists between them, and since every meter of that space is expanding, the cumulative speed of the belt increases. At a distance of 10 billion light-years, the motor of the vacuum roars. The floor is now moving backward at a significant portion of the speed of light. The runner, still moving at its fixed and immutable pace, finds that its progress is being slowed by the sheer volume of new space being manufactured beneath its feet. This is where the physical sensation of futility begins to manifest in the data. The legs of the light, its frequency and wavelength, start to show the strain of the journey. To maintain its forward momentum against the receding belt, the light must pay a price in energy. Its waves are stretched, its stride forced wider and wider by the expanding floor. The runner is no longer a vibrant, high-frequency sprinter. It is becoming a weary, long-wavelength crawler, its energy bleeding away into the very vacuum it tries to traverse. Eventually, the runner reaches the critical threshold of the 18 billion light-year mark. Here, the motor of dark energy achieves a perfect, terrible parity with the runner. At this specific distance, the belt moves backward at exactly 300,000 kilometers per second. The photon continues to sprint with every ounce of its electromagnetic energy, yet its position relative to the observer remains unchanged. It is running in place, a prisoner of the very ground it seeks to cross. There is no friction, no sound, and no heat, only the silent mathematical stalemate between the speed of light and the expansion of the void. The runner's legs are stretched to the breaking point, the wavelength becoming so long that the energy of the photon vanishes into the background. Beyond this line, the machine enters a state of absolute severance. The treadmill moves faster than any runner can possibly move. A photon emitted from a galaxy 20 billion light-years away is immediately swept backward. Even though it is moving forward at the maximum speed allowed by the laws of physics, the space between it and the observer is growing faster than it can bridge the gap. The runner is moving toward us, but the distance is increasing. It is a geometric inevitability that defies intuition. The topology of the universe is not a passive stage, it is an active participant in the isolation of its components. The machine is designed so that the further away something is, the more impossible it becomes to reach. The sensation is one of clinical mechanical cruelty. The motor of dark energy does not tire, does not require maintenance, and does not fail. It is an inherent property of the vacuum, a constant pressure that ensures the treadmill will only ever speed up. There is no hope for the runner to catch up, no hidden reserve of speed to be tapped. The speed of light is a hard limit, a ceiling that the machine uses as a tool of containment. By fixing the maximum speed of information, and then setting the expansion of space to exceed that speed, the cold machine ensures that the various parts of the universe will eventually be locked into their own private cells of darkness. This rigged race is the fundamental truth of our cosmological era. We are watching the runners on the distant belts as they begin to lose ground. We see their strides lengthening, their colours fading, and their energy dissipating. We are the spectators in a stadium where the track is being pulled apart, and the athletes are being carried away into the shadows by a floor that refuses to stay still. The isolation is not a side effect. It is the logical conclusion of the machine's operation. The topology of space-time is a web designed to catch light and stretch it until it breaks, leaving behind a universe where the only things that can be seen are those that are close enough to be caught in the same local pocket of the receding floor. The cosmic treadmill is the engine of our loneliness, a mathematical certainty that ensures the eventual silence of the heavens. The local group is a small, tightly bound cluster of galaxies, a rare pocket of resistance against the relentless expansion of the machine. Within this microscopic corner of the cosmos, the gears of gravity still possess enough leverage to counteract the repulsive pressure of the vacuum. The two primary components of this group, the Milky Way and Andromeda, are currently locked in a gravitational embrace that grows tighter with every passing second. They are falling toward one another at a speed of approximately 110 kilometers per second. This is not a collision in the traditional sense, but a slow, majestic merger, a mechanical union that will unfold over the next 4 to 5 billion years. As these two massive spiral structures approach, their individual shapes will be distorted by tidal forces. Long streamers of stars, gas, and dust will be pulled into the intergalactic void, forming luminous bridges that span the gap between them. Eventually, their central black holes will find a common center of mass, and the two galaxies will settle into a new, stable configuration, a single massive elliptical galaxy. This new entity, a titan of stars and aging nebulae, will serve as the final fortress of matter in our sector of the universe. But even as this local consolidation occurs, the cold machine is busy dismantling the external connections that once tied our neighborhood to the rest of the cosmic web. The power lines of light and gravity are being cut. Beyond the boundaries of the local group, the expansion of space is already winning the tug-of-war against the attractive forces of matter. The vast filaments of the cosmic web, the scaffolding of dark matter that connects galactic clusters across millions of light-years, are being stretched and thinned. We are witnessing the beginning of the Great Isolation. The massive Virgo supercluster, our nearest large-scale neighbour, is already receding at a rate that ensures it will never merge with our own group. It is being pushed away by the swelling of the vacuum, a process that is as methodical as it is irreversible. The imagery of this departure is one of clinical abandonment. The Virgo cluster, containing over 1,000 galaxies, is slowly slipping toward the cosmic event horizon. Behind it, the even more distant and massive Coma cluster and the mysterious heavy concentration of matter known as the Great Attractor are also being swept away. These structures, which once exerted a powerful gravitational influence on our trajectory through the dark, are losing their grip. The machine is effectively redacting the neighbouring chapters of our cosmic history. One by one, the great beacons of the deep night are fading as they cross the 18 billion light-year threshold. This process turns our local neighbourhood into a solitary island in an ever-growing ocean of nothingness. The light from the Virgo cluster will continue to reach our telescopes for a time, but it will be increasingly redshifted, its energy drained by the expansion of the floor. Eventually, the last photons capable of bridging the gap will pass through our sensors, and the connection will be severed forever. The great filaments will snap, leaving the merged Milky Way and Andromeda as a lonely outpost in a void of infinite proportions. The machine is isolating its components, ensuring that no two clusters can ever communicate or interact again. The Great Isolation is the logical conclusion of a universe dominated by the cosmological constant. It is a state of maximum fragmentation, where the only things that remain are those that were already physically touching or gravitationally bound before the acceleration took hold. The map of the universe is being cleared of all external features, leaving only the local terrain. For any future observer within the merged galaxy, the night sky will undergo a slow and terrifying transformation. The distant smudges of light that represent other worlds will vanish, leaving behind a velvet blackness that no telescope can penetrate. The machine does not care for the loneliness it creates. It is simply executing the mathematical mandates of its design. The separation of the Virgo cluster and the Great Attractor is not an event of drama or tragedy. It is a calculation reaching its inevitable result. The vacuum is simply demanding more space, and the galaxies are the price of that demand. As the intergalactic voids grow, they act as impassable barriers, walls of expanding space that no ship and no signal can ever cross. We are being quarantined by the geometry of the universe, locked inside a single, aging galaxy, while the rest of reality retreats into the shadows. This isolation defines the final era of the machine's operation. The period of cosmic connectivity, where light could travel between clusters and gravity could shape the large-scale structure of the heavens, is coming to an end. We are entering the age of the island universes, where every bound cluster is a closed system, a solitary lantern burning in a dark that grows larger and colder with every passing hour. The Great Isolation is the final silencing of the cosmic conversation, a mechanical severance that leaves us alone with our own stars, while the rest of the engine continues to churn out an endless empty distance. The passage of time within the engine eventually reaches a scale where the initial 13.8 billion years of cosmic history appear as a mere flicker at the start of an eternal night. 1 trillion years into the future, the machine has successfully completed the primary phase of its isolation protocol. The vibrant blue-white stars of the ancient eras have long since exhausted their fuel, leaving behind a cosmos populated by the dim crimson embers of long-lived red dwarf stars. On a frozen planet orbiting one of these stellar remnants, an observer, the last astronomer, peers into the depths of the night. This world is a place of extreme cold and perpetual twilight, where the weak heat of a dying sun is the only shield against the absolute zero of the surrounding void. The sky above this world is a masterpiece of oppressive velvet blackness. When the last astronomer looks up, they see the stars of their own massive, merged elliptical galaxy, the final remains of the union between the Milky Way and Andromeda. These stars are the only lights in the entire theatre of existence. Beyond the edges of this single galactic structure, there is nothing. The great clusters of Virgo, Coma, and the countless billions of other island universes have long since been swept across the cosmic event horizon. They are not merely distant, they are causally erased. The light they once emitted has been stretched by the expansion of space until its wavelength is longer than the diameter of the observable universe itself. To the instruments of this deep future, the rest of reality has ceased to exist. This civilization exists in a state of profound mathematical amnesia. They possess no evidence that the Big Bang ever occurred. In the ancient past, astronomers could look at the redshift of distant galaxies to understand that the universe was expanding, but for the last astronomer there are no distant galaxies to measure. The sky is a static, unchanging tomb. The cosmic microwave background radiation, the fading afterglow of the initial creation, has been stretched by the cold machine until its temperature has dropped to a level that is indistinguishable from the background noise of the vacuum. It is no longer a detectable signal. It is a ghost that has finally vanished into the silence. To this future observer, the machine appears to have finished its work. They live in a universe that seems to be a steady, eternal and solitary island of stars surrounded by an infinite and empty void. Their science, however advanced, is trapped within the walls of a solitary confinement of infinite proportions. Without the clues provided by the distant galaxies and the relic radiation of the birth of time, they cannot reconstruct the history of the cosmos. They will never know that the universe was once a hot, dense point of energy. They will never know that there were once hundreds of billions of other galaxies, each teeming with their own stars and histories. The machine has not only separated the parts of the universe, it has redacted the evidence of their ever having been connected. The last astronomer lives in a state of clinical ignorance, a victim of the engine's relentless efficiency. The cold machine has effectively deleted the context of their existence. They are convinced that their single galaxy is the entirety of the universe, a lonely collection of stars that has existed forever in a static dark. The very concept of an expanding universe would seem like a mathematical fantasy to them, a theory with no observational basis. The isolation is so total that even the laws of physics as perceived by this civilization are distorted by the lack of data. They are the inhabitants of a cosmic cell, and the door has been locked from the outside by the accelerating expansion of space-time. The sensation of this future is one of absolute mechanical finality. The red dwarf stars will continue to burn for tens of trillions of years, but they are merely the slow-burning candles in a house that has been moved to the edge of an infinite cliff. The machine continues to churn out new space, pushing the empty void further and further away. but for the inhabitants of the last galaxy, the expansion is no longer visible. It has become a hidden process, a silent background operation that no longer interacts with the matter it has left behind. The universe has become a graveyard of information, where the memories of the beginning have been buried under layers of redshift and distance. This is the ultimate triumph of the cold machine. It has not only dismantled the physical structure of the cosmos, but has also dismantled the possibility of understanding it. The last astronomer stands on their frozen world, looking at a sky that tells a lie of permanence and solitude. They are a part of the engine that has been cut off from the rest of the mechanism, a gear spinning in a void that no longer connects to any other part of the clock. In this deep future, the witnessing that once defined the human era has been replaced by a quiet, unwitting existence in a redacted reality. The machine runs on, indifferent to the fact that its most complex creations no longer know where they came from or what lies beyond the dark. The isolation is complete, the silence is absolute, and the history of the universe is finally irrevocably lost. The current epoch of the universe represents a staggering, almost impossible coincidence of timing. Within the vast, multi-trillion-year lifespan of the cold machine, we occupy a narrow, privileged sliver of history where the inner workings of the engine remain exposed to the light of inquiry. This is the Goldilocks era of astronomy, a fleeting moment of clarity situated between two vast periods of observational darkness. To exist now is to stand in a unique vantage point, a temporary clearing in the cosmic fog that allows the collective mind of a biological species to reconstruct the entire narrative of the machine's operation from the first tick of the universal clock to its inevitable silent conclusion. In the first few 100,000 years after the initial expansion, the machine was too hot, too dense, and too chaotic for light to escape the roiling plasma of its creation. Had we existed then, the sky would have been a blinding, opaque wall of fire, a system of such high energy that no information could traverse the void. In the deep future, as the expansion continues its relentless acceleration, every distant clue will be carried beyond the event horizon, leaving any future observer with nothing but the stars of their own local neighbourhood. But in this specific era, roughly 13.8 billion years after the start of the process, the universe is both transparent and still largely connected. The light of 100 billion galaxies is currently in flight toward our planet, carrying with it the encoded data of stellar birth, galactic evolution, and the chemical enrichment of the void. We are living in the only period of cosmic history where the evidence of the beginning and the evidence of the end are simultaneously visible. We can look back to the 380,000-year mark and see the cosmic microwave background, the cooling embers of the initial explosion. We can observe the first stars igniting in the dark, and we can measure the current acceleration of the vacuum that will one day tear it all apart. This convergence of data is a temporary gift of the machine's geometry. If humanity had arrived only a few billion years earlier, the influence of dark energy would have been too subtle to detect, hidden beneath the dominant pull of gravity. If we had arrived a few dozen billion years later, the most important witnesses to the history of the universe, the distant galaxies, would have already vanished into the infrared shadows. This realization transforms the nature of scientific discovery into a desperate high-stakes salvage operation. The machine is not a static museum of its own history. It is a dynamic process that is actively and systematically deleting its own archive. Every second that passes, the accelerating expansion of space-time pushes the most distant galaxies further toward the 18 billion light-year threshold. We are engaged in a race against the very fabric of reality. Our telescopes, from the massive glass mirrors perched on high mountain peaks to the sophisticated sensors floating in the cold vacuum of space, are working to record the details of a cosmic map that is being shredded by the motor of the vacuum. We are transcribing a library that is currently on fire. The urgency of this era is palpable in every photon we capture. The light reaching us from the furthest reaches of the observable universe is the last of its kind. It is the final transmission from regions of space that have already been disconnected from our future. To observe these objects is to perform an act of cosmic archaeology, reaching out to touch the ghosts of a reality that the machine has already discarded. We are the only generation of observers who will ever see the universe in its full interconnected glory. Our maps are the most complete they will ever be, for the territory they describe is shrinking with every tick of the clock. This Goldilocks window is a fragile anomaly in a universe of ironclad logic and indifferent gears. It is a moment of symmetry where the forces of attraction and repulsion are in a visible transition, allowing us to see the mechanics of both. We are the accidental beneficiaries of a cosmic transition, living in the brief pause between the dense, crowded past and the empty, isolated future. This timing is not a matter of purpose or design, but a mathematical fluke in the operation of the engine, yet it places a profound responsibility upon the act of witnessing. We are the only ones who can see the machine for what it truly is, before the gears are hidden once more by the encroaching darkness. The scientific endeavours of our species are thus a race against the inevitable redaction of the cosmos. Every galaxy we catalogue, every redshift we measure, and every supernova we observe is a piece of data rescued from the event horizon. We are documenting the inner workings of the cold machine while the lights are still on. In the grand timeline of the universe, this period of visibility is a mere heartbeat, a flicker of light in a dark room. But for us, it is the entirety of our opportunity. We must look and we must understand, for the machine is already shifting into its final gear, and the silence of the deep future is already beginning to descend upon the edges of the map. The window is closing, the light is fading, and the opportunity to know the true scale of the universe is a privilege that will never be repeated. Against the backdrop of this mindless precision, the biological drive to wonder emerges as a radical and unexplained anomaly. The cold machine follows a script written in the language of mathematics, a series of operations that require no awareness to execute. The gears of the cosmological constant turn, the vacuum expands, and the galaxies retreat into the shadows without a single spark of internal recognition. The universe does not know that it is 13.8 billion years old. It does not know that it is accelerating, nor does it care that it is systematically dismantling the connections between its various parts. It is a system of total, clinical indifference, a clockwork void that performs its functions with the same lack of sentiment as a falling stone or a decaying isotope. Yet, within the gears of this engine, a peculiar phenomenon has taken root. We are the products of the machine's own laws, composed of the same carbon, nitrogen and oxygen forged in the nuclear furnaces of stars that have long since been extinguished. But unlike the stars, we have developed the ability to observe the very processes that created us. We are the witnesses, the only part of the cosmic machinery that is not purely mechanical. While the rest of the universe is content to simply exist, we possess a restless biological need to understand. We have built tools of glass and silicon to capture the fading light of distant worlds, and we have developed mathematical languages to decode the secrets of the vacuum. This act of witnessing is the only thing in the cosmos that does not follow a purely deterministic path. This capacity for observation introduces a profound tension into the architecture of the machine. The engine is programmed for isolation and silence, yet we are driven by an insatiable hunger for connection and meaning. The cold machine does not care for our desire to explore, nor does it respond to our need for a purpose. It continues its work of deletion with a terrifying efficiency, regardless of the civilizations it strands in the dark. But by looking back at the gears, by mapping the expansion, and measuring the energy of the vacuum, we are performing an act of cosmic rebellion. We are refusing to be mere components of the system. We are asserting our status as observers, the only entities capable of asking why, while the engine runs on its mindless ironclad logic. This rebellion is born from a transformation of emotion. The initial realization of the universe's indifference, the cold terror of the great isolation, and the inevitable silence of the deep future is a heavy burden for a conscious mind to carry. To know that everything we see is destined to vanish into an unreachable dark can lead to a sense of nihilism. However, for those who peer through the telescopes, this terror is often transmuted into a fierce and desperate gratitude. We recognize that we occupy a vanishingly small and incredibly lucky moment in time. The fact that we exist in the brief window where the light of 100 billion galaxies still reaches us is not a right, but a staggering coincidence. Our awareness is a flicker of light in a room that is slowly being emptied of its furniture, and that flicker makes the remaining view all the more precious. We have become the consciousness of the machine. Through our eyes, the universe is finally looking at itself, contemplating its own birth and its own eventual dissolution. We are the only part of the engine that can feel the weight of the passing eons, the only part that can mourn the departure of a distant cluster, and the only part that can find beauty in the clinical cruelty of the expansion. This is our unique role in the cosmic drama, to be the ones who record the history of the machine before it is lost forever. Our scientific endeavours are not merely about gathering data. They're about honouring the reality of what exists before the redaction is complete. We are the chroniclers of a dying light, the librarians of a burning archive. In the face of an indifferent cosmos, our act of observation becomes the only thing that isn't mechanical. The stars burn because they must. The vacuum expands because it is its nature. But we wonder because we choose to. This choice is the ultimate defiance. We're a part of the engine that has developed the ability to wonder if the engine is running correctly. We are the glitch in the system that demands a reason for the math. Even as the machine continues to pull the galaxies away and stretch the light into nothingness, our fierce commitment to understanding remains. We are the accidental observers, the fleeting sparks of awareness in a clockwork void, and for this brief, brilliant moment, we are the only ones who know the true scale of the tragedy and the beauty of the cold machine. This gratitude is our shield against the dark, a flame that burns all the brighter, because we know exactly how soon it must go out. The final state of the machine is an absolute unyielding darkness. As the last of the galaxies cross the 18 billion light-year threshold, the observable universe will shrink until it encompasses only the local remains of our own galactic merger. The cosmic microwave background will fade into a radio silence that no instrument can bridge. The engine will have succeeded in its mission of total fragmentation, leaving behind a universe where the very concept of other has been erased from the laws of physics. This is the clinical cruelty of the cold machine. It does not destroy its creations with heat or pressure, but with the slow, agonizing stretch of distance. It isolates every spark of matter until it is a solitary prisoner in an infinite cell. The great filaments of the cosmic web, which once pulsed with the light of 100 billion galaxies, will snap and dissolve, leaving behind a void that is truly and perfectly empty. Yet, even as the gears of the vacuum turn toward this inevitable conclusion, the beauty of the human witness remains the only thing that the machine cannot quantify. We exist in a fleeting moment of cosmic symmetry, a brief window where the light of the beginning still reaches our eyes, and the darkness of the end is already visible on the horizon. We are the accidental observers, the biological glitches in a system of iron and math. Our presence does not change the outcome. The expansion will not slow for our sake, and the stars will not stop their retreat because we wish to see them. But in our act of observing, we have achieved something that the cold machine, for all its power and precision, can never possess. We have understood it. We have mapped the 13.8 billion years of its history and predicted the trillion-year trajectory of its future. This understanding is our legacy. We are the only part of the engine that has developed the ability to see the gears. We have looked into the heart of the vacuum and found the energy density of 10 to the power of minus 27 kilograms per cubic meter, recognizing it as the fuel for our own isolation. We have seen the red-shifted ghosts of departing galaxies and understood that we are watching the map of reality being redacted in real time. This knowledge does not diminish the scale of the cosmos, nor does it soften the blow of the coming silence. Instead, it elevates our brief existence to a status of supreme importance. We are the only ones who will ever know that the universe was once a vibrant, interconnected whole. We are the memory of the light in a universe that is destined for the dark. Our place within this vast mechanical landscape is humble, yet profound. We are the fleeting sparks of awareness in a clockwork void, the only entities capable of feeling the fierce, desperate gratitude that comes from knowing how lucky we are to be here now. The machine will continue to run until the last light is extinguished and the last atom is pulled apart by the expansion of space. It will continue to churn out empty distance long after the last observer has vanished. But for this brief moment, the lights are still on, the gears are still visible, the story of the universe is still being told, and we are the ones who have been chosen by the laws of probability to hear it. As we stand on the edge of this expanding void, the act of witnessing becomes a sacred duty. We must continue to look, to measure, and to wonder, for as long as the laws of physics allow. Every new discovery is a victory over the encroaching silence, a piece of the cosmic puzzle rescued from the event horizon. If this journey through the cold machinery of the universe has stirred a sense of wonder within you, consider becoming a permanent part of this effort to document the heavens. By subscribing to this channel and supporting our work, you join a global community of witnesses dedicated to capturing the story of the cosmos before the light of the distant galaxies finally fails. Together, we can ensure that the record of our existence and the history of the stars is preserved for as long as the flame of human consciousness remains lit. The window is closing, the dark is growing, but for now, we are here and we are watching. Join us as we continue to explore the deep mysteries of the cold machine, witnessing the wonders of a universe that is as beautiful as it is indifferent.